Okay, today, super exciting for this topic. A lot of the coaching calls, a lot of the implementation that we do for a lot of different companies out there involves a leveraged sales team, whether that's a call center inside or maybe that's somebody outside, maybe in the Philippines or outside their local office, calling leads, following up with leads, prospects, all of that stuff. And evidently, we always get the conversation, hey, do scripts work? Or we don't want to use scripts, or we've used them in the past that didn't work. Or the total opposite of the other side of the spectrum is we've used them before, they were the greatest thing in the world, but we need new scripts. So I want to cover today, really quick, do sales scripts work? Now, if you're in the sales business, or maybe you run a sales team, you've probably heard this a lot. So let's go through this really quick. What is the purpose of a script? Pretty simple, right? Number one, let's write it down, right? It's a purpose of a sales script is nothing more than a series of questions. Let's write this down right here. Questions meant to guide a contact to a specific outcome or sale. That's really all it is. A script is a series of questions meant to guide a contact to a specific outcome or a sale. It's not to be manipulatable or manipulative. It's not to trick somebody. It's not to use all this ninja trickery to get somebody to say yes when in reality they should be a no. At the end of the day, it's nothing more than just a series of questions meant to guide a contact to a specific outcome or a sale. Now, some of the most common challenges that we find with salespeople when we coach them to use scripts are the following. Let's write them down. And you're probably dealing with this as well in your business. Number one is, I don't want to sound like a robot. And if this is the first live you guys are joining with me right now, you know that my handwriting is unbelievable. Just bear with it. The second challenge you may have is, maybe all of the calls do not go the same. Maybe you sell like a service that has like all these different tiers, or maybe you're like a real estate agent that might be selling luxury properties or everyday properties or investment or land or commercial or whatever. And not every follow-up call or every sales call goes the same. So you may think a script for you may not work. Let's keep going. Number three is that it's just more stuff I have to pay attention to on a call. Many of us are using systems out there. Maybe you've got a voice over IP system, or you've got some level of a phone system that's connected with your CRM, and maybe you're calling through a dialer and Joe Blow picks up and you're like, oh crap, what do I do? And you're fumbling through the scripts and there's just an operational nightmare. That might be one of the reasons you don't want to use a script. The third thing that I wrote down is that maybe your scripting is not operational. And what I mean by that is they're not centralized. There's no team-approved script that everybody kind of uses. It's just, hey, here's kind of what we say this over and over again. And the fifth thing that I wrote down is, hey, you know what? I'm experienced. Little goof there here. Let's fix that. I am experienced or I don't need a script. Probably the hardest one to overcome in a sales team is number 5. And what I mean by that is, we have a lot of salespeople that have been doing this for a very long time, and they're very comfortable with what we do. And one of the primary reasons to use a script, we'll talk about this later on in the video, is not necessary to make it easy on the client. It's not necessary to pave the road. It's not so we do something over and over all the time. The reason why we use scripts in sales business is because if we're not measuring what we say, we can't improve. And I'll give that to you again. If we're not measuring what we say, we can't improve it. So chances are you may have made 100 sales calls last week, and maybe your conversion rate was 15% to an appointment, and maybe the appointment to a sale was like 10% or whatever the number was. And you're sitting here at the beginning of this week, today's Monday, the day we're going live on this, and you might be thinking, okay, well, I need to make my sales just a little bit better for the week upcoming. So why don't I just change something that I said? Or maybe I need to close a little bit differently, or maybe I need to stand up when I make my calls, or maybe we need to go to Zoom and get off the phone. Whatever the issue is, you can't make that decision if you're not doing something the same way every single time. If you were saying the same thing on the call every single time or on a Zoom video, however you do your sales calls, and you know that 3 minutes in on every call, they say no or they hang up, well, clearly something in that first 3 minutes needs to be changed. But if it's different every single time, you don't know if it's your tone, you don't know if it's something you said, you don't know if it's question number 2, you don't know if it's your intro, like you don't know any of that because you're doing something different every single time. Let's get back to the presentation. So can scripts be manipulative? And the answer is yes, they can manipulate people, right? And if you think about communication in general, all scripts, all communication is meant to manipulate, but if you're doing it right, then it's manipulation for the right times. Like if you think about kids, right? Do we manipulate our kids? And the answer would be like 100% we manipulate them. We manipulate them to go to bed on time. We manipulate them to eat the right food, to drink water, to make soccer on time, to make sure they're doing all their homework, to pick up after the dog, to walk the dog, to do all these things. We use language that's specifically tailored to them to get them to do it because we know, if you're a good parent, and I know we hope we all are, right? We know that we use that manipulative, I can't even say that word right. We use that language intentfully to get the desired outcome because when they achieve the outcome, they're better off for it, right? So it can be very manipulative, but we don't use it in a negative term. Let's go to the next one. Here's what I would write down in notes. A well-crafted script creates safety with the prospect allowing them to proceed. Hopefully I spelled that right. I probably didn't. Let's write that the right way here. With the sale. What do I mean by that? It's really simple. Look, the purpose of a script is not to get somebody from a no to a yes. And I want to be very clear about that. It's not to make sure that this person has no business buying my product, but if I use the right words, if I manipulate them correctly, if I use the right NLP and all this stuff, I can make a no turn into yes. No, a script when used correctly is meant to create safety, allowing people that are going to buy your product to use your service, right? There might be clients out there, and if you're in the real estate space, that are looking for a home right now. The purpose of a script for a real estate client would be to demonstrate that you are the correct agent for them to purchase a home. The purchase of a script not used correctly in the real estate space would be to try to convince somebody to buy a home that doesn't want to buy a home or is not ready to buy a home. Now, there's a little bit of gray area in this because I know a lot of people are on the fence with real estate right now, and they don't know if they should buy now or they should wait based on how the crazy market is going right now. We use scripting in that case to educate and let them know that, hey, here are the pros and cons of doing it right now. Here's the cause and effect of it. And here are the consequences or the cause and effect of waiting. At the end of the day, Mr. and Mrs. Consumer, it's up to you to make the decision whether you should choose to buy or sell a home right now. At the end of the day, it's all about your life cycle of where you are right now. Now, a bad script would be like, you need to buy right now. Fear, 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 do it, do it, do it. If you don't, you're gonna fail, fail, fail. That is a bad script, and I promise you, will you convert with that type of script? And the answer would be yes. Believe it or not, you will convert, but your percentages will plummet. They won't be nearly as high as they normally are. And at the end of the day, what you're probably going to face is a significant level of buyer's remorse. And that's another benefit to using the script. It's going to weed out the people that have no business buying for you, and it's going to make it easy and streamline the path to success for the people that are going to buy from you. So let's go to the next one. Look, if you're anywhere normal like anybody else, chances are you use scripts every day in your personal life. So like as you're brainstorming this right now, and for those of you guys in the comments who are watching the replay and who are live with me right now, I'll see if we can come over here and take a quick look at that. You know that you use scripts every day in your personal life. Like, what do we do this, right? We use this with kids, to go to bed, right? That would be a script. How you tell them to go to bed every day. We use this with at work with office workers right now, right? And what I mean by that, I'll put coworkers. chances are if you were going to ask somebody in your office to do something for you, you would ask a coworker something probably a little bit different than you would ask your boss. You'd probably ask your boss the same question a little bit different than you may ask a director. You might ask a director something a little bit different than you would ask maybe the CEO of the owner of your business. So all of that is scripting. Sometimes scripting isn't necessarily the words and the order of the words that we use. Sometimes scripting is as simple as the tonality or the speed or the pace at which we talk at every single day. It's not always about using words 1, 2, and 3. For example, if I came home from work and I walked in your house and you said, Steve, how was your day at work today? And I would say, it's fine. You'd be like, okay, great. But if I walked in with the same exact thing and you said, Steve, how was your day at work? How was your day at work today? And I said, it's fine. I yelled at you. Now there's something that you need to think like, whoa, he said that kind of a little bit different than how he normally says it. Something may have happened at work. That's a script as well. So it's not only the words we use, but it's also how we use those words. So let's put that down there, right? It's also how we use words as well. And for those of you guys that are members at Inbound Fanatics, I will include this deck in the blog post so you guys have access to this. Everything that we do, how you deliver news to your spouse. How do you talk to your friends? How do you talk to friends that are really, really good friends? How do you talk to friends that aren't your friends, right? Or aren't really close friends, right? Do you stay on the surface with them? These are all scripts that we use every single day. So let's talk about the most common types of scripts. We're going to stick to business here, and let's write these out. So I'm looking at the comments right now. A couple of these are definitely valid. I'm going to go back to my notes here so I can make sure we all stay on track. But number one, the obvious one's going to be sales scripts, right? So let's put that in there. These scripts, like plain and simple, they are meant to get clients from point A to point B, and they're meant to identify the yeses and disqualify the nos. I'll give that to you again. A sales script is meant to get a client from point A to point B, and it's meant to identify the yeses and disqualify the nos. A sales script, when you're converting or making sales calls, is not to try to convince a no that they should be a yes. And what I mean by a no, in this context, a no is somebody who has no business buying your product. A no is not somebody who should be buying your product but isn't yet convinced. That's a totally different prospect, right? So we want to disqualify the no's and identify the yeses. Let's get back to the notes. The second thing that I wrote down is you might have specific follow-up scripts. These would be, maybe you've already had a sales call before, it didn't go very well, and maybe they said, hey, we don't want to buy your stuff right now, but why don't you call us like later in March? So you're calling back in March just to see what it is. That would be a specific script you would use. That would be different than a sales script because there's already some level of context there. The third thing that I wrote down is appointment confirmations. These could be made by like a VA. It could be made by your assistant. It could be made by an account manager. It doesn't necessarily have to be made by the owner or the salesperson. And this is just a simple call. Actually, today we upgraded our internet here in the office. And I think this morning it was a little overwhelming, but we got 3 calls confirming the appointment and setting up the account and all of that stuff. And it could just be, hey, my name's Steve Olson. I work here at Inbound Fanatics. I understand you have a call with one of our salespeople at 2 o'clock, and I want to let you know that here are the 3 things that you can expect to get covered today. We're also going to get all of your questions answered, and if there's anything you need from us at the end of that free strategy call, we'll make sure to get that to you via email. Is there anything that we need to know that I could notify person X of before you hop on the call with them today? It's such an important script because it prepares our salespeople, it prepares our coaches ahead of time with what's important to the client and what's not important, right? Maybe some of you guys that are coaching with us right now, or maybe you've coached with somebody else, maybe pricing was a big issue. Maybe the number of calls was a big issue. Maybe what you cover on those calls is a big issue. Maybe the tech stack that you use in your business is a big issue. If we assume that we know what your big issues are, chances are half that call it's going to be a waste of time. So these appointment confirmations, sure, they're meant to make sure that you show up for the appointment. Sure, they're meant to remind you that your time's coming up. But at the end of the day, it's to make sure that we as a company, and I say we like you involved, are not wasting the prospect's time. If they're going to take 15, 30, 45 minutes out of their day to talk to us on the phone or over Zoom, we want to make sure it's a good use of your time. So we use appointment confirmations for that. Let's keep going. The fourth thing that I wrote down are operational scripts. Every once in a while, when one of our clients schedules some custom work with our implementation team, our account manager will get on the phone with them or get on a Zoom and they'll scope out all the work. We'll put together a project in Monday. That will make it over to our implementation team, and our implementation team will get stuck, meaning they don't understand like paragraph 2, item number 3. Now, instead of our implementation team going back to the account manager going back to the client, and then the client clarifying it, then going back to the account manager, then going back to the implementation team, our implementation team will go directly in email. They will send the client an email directly and say, hey, we're going through the scope of work right now. In section 2, line item number 4, we're a little confused on it. Would you mind clarifying that for us? So that way everybody stays directly connected and the client knows that we're actually working on it. All of that is scripting. We don't leave that up to any decision making with anybody on the team. There's templates for everything. They use the template, they fill in some specific details, and then we wait for a client response back. Now, some of you guys might be thinking like, going back to slide number 2, that sounds like a little robotic. And if it's too robotic, will my clients not appreciate it? And remember, the whole purpose of this is just to get them from point A to point B. An operational script that I wrote down right here is not meant to give influence or anything like that. It's just like simply to get the job done. Nothing more, nothing less. And I promise you, when we went to operationalize systemized scripting on email, things got a lot easier because now the clients responded the same way every single time, all the time. It speeds up our workflow, and it gives us the permission to allow everybody on the team to talk to the client to make sure we get them the result that they're after. Here's the fifth thing I wrote down. These would be like post-sale scripts. How many of you guys watching this video, I'd be curious in the comments here on YouTube, let me know, or if you're watching this on the blog, you got this via email, put a comment below. How many of you guys have somebody that calls a client after they buy something for you just to see how everything went? Really, really, really important. If you guys have purchased a car in the recent history, last 5 years, you know that a lot of these car manufacturers bonus their sales reps based on the survey that they got back. So multiple times throughout the car sales process, they'll mention this survey that's going to come your way because they could do a great job and get you the financing they want, or you want, the pricing you want, the car you want. But if the process was bad, that's going to show up in the survey. And I don't know how their pay is affected, but it's clearly affected because they make a big deal about it. Then you get to the call and they ask you all the questions like, how were you treated? How long did it take you? How satisfied were you with X, Y, and Z? And it's like, 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. It doesn't matter if you're selling something that's hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars, or maybe you're selling a service, or you're selling a home, or maybe you're an attorney and you're selling hours, billable hours. Somebody should always get on the phone all the time and say, hey, you interacted with our company with X, Y, and Z intent. How did it go? Could you do this over email? 100%, yes, you could do this over email. Could you do this over text message, right? Type 1 for yes, 2 for no. 100% you could do it over text message. Could you do it over the phone? 100%, yes, you could do it over the phone. There is no right or wrong way to do it, but I will tell you that the best amount of feedback that you will get with your customers is immediately after they swipe their credit card. There is no better time that you're going to get better feedback than that. All right, so let's keep going. How does a script help me if I run a sales team? I kind of alluded to this earlier, right? Number one, it's going to give you a control when evaluating, we'll just put eval, performance. One of the teams we worked with a few months ago has a sales system that's built in with a voice over IP system in HubSpot, and they record all their calls. They use the same script. They use a feature in HubSpot that I think is probably one of their biggest value propositions, called playbooks. And a playbook is literally, you make a call, the playbook pops up, and the sales rep literally reads every question on the playbook and fills in their answer. And based on the answer that goes in the playbook, there are some automations that kick off. Well, through analytics and AI, the sales leaders are able to look at all these calls and they say, hey, on average, these calls are dropping off like at a minute 2, or minute 3, or 3 minutes or 4 minutes, and they're dropping off at this part of the playbook. So they know part of this is kind of, this middle qualification system. It's not working, so we need to make a change. So the sales managers don't go to all the sales rep and say, wait, put the brakes on, we're changing everything. It's a new script, it's a new process, because you guys know, and I know every time we do that, people get frustrated and they kind of drop off. The good news is when you operate from a feature in HubSpot called Playbooks, I think Salesforce does this as well. Most of the enterprise level CRMs have some feature like this, is they just change the playbook. They record a video, they let the sales team know that there's been a little change to the playbook and to change their script accordingly, and then they just look at the analytics over and over and over again. But again, if you don't train the sales team to believe that they need to operate from that script every single time, and whatever is on the script is what we do, that should be something that from day one, this is just how we kind of operate, right? If your sales culture isn't built that way, then any level of micro changes or coaching throughout that process gets very, very uncomfortable. So start from the beginning, or if you've got to, like, just rip the Band-Aid off right now and make sure that we go like right away and we go to a script-based culture. Let's go back to it. How else does a sales script help me run a sales team? Number one, from a coaching perspective, or number two, rather, from a coaching perspective, I'll just put per. Would help if I would write this down right. From a coaching perspective, it will shorten your meetings. Whether it's one-on-one or whether it's in a group, we probably all have those people that once we start talking, like, they just don't stop, right? They just keep going over and over and over. So this kind of keeps us on track, right? The biggest benefit I would tell you is the control part. If you can just learn to understand and fall in love with the control part, I promise you it will get easier. Listen, I hope scripting is a part of your business. If you've ever considered something, maybe you want to implement scripts and you want a structure on how to do that, there's a 3-part way that we put together all of our sales and operational scripts. We'll create another live around how we do that. It's really, remember, if you go back to the beginning of the presentation and the beginning of the live, scripting is nothing different than just a series of questions that allows a contact to get to an endpoint. That's really all it boils down to, whether that's sales, follow-ups, operational, team-driven, coaching-driven. It's all the same, right? Everything that we do in life is a script. What I'm recommending to you is that you don't go by the seat of your pants. You just don't say what's in your head, because inevitably you'll walk away from that sales presentation and you'll say, oh, I totally freaking forgot to talk about this. In fact, when I used to sell real estate full time, I would go in there in the early days back in 2007, 8, 9 with a little piece of paper or a notebook, and I'd write all my questions down, and I would just sit at the table and I would ask all the questions. Now, you might be thinking, like, when you're pitching yourself as a real estate agent, you're asking all the questions like, when do you actually show them what you do? Well, we actually show them what we do through the art of how we ask questions, because we ask questions in a certain order that elicit a certain response. That response allows us to go deeper. The other reason why we ask questions, we'll do a whole different video on this, is that when you get them to give you the answers and get the client to explain their position, they say yes a lot quicker and they feel a lot better at the end of that as well. So I hope this was valuable. If you have not already followed us on YouTube or subscribed below, we'll never ask you to subscribe at the beginning of a video. If you think this was valuable, if you love getting this every day, do me a favor, subscribe below and hit the little bell icon so that you can get notified the next time we go live. We go live almost every day. Sometimes they're 10 minutes, sometimes they're an hour long. We go live every day to help you with inbound marketing. If we can help you directly, you can always go to inboundfanaticscoaching.com and we can show you how we can help you on a one-on-one basis as well. Remember, scripting works, control works. I hope you implement it. All right. I love you all. We'll see you on the next one.